In the quiet Bavarian village of Konnersreuth in southern Germany lived one of the most mysterious Catholic mystics of the 20th century, Therese Neumann. Beginning in the 1920s, her small family home became a place of pilgrimage. Priests, bishops, scholars, and ordinary faithful traveled across from Europe seeking spiritual advice, comfort, and guidance. Many were drawn by the extraordinary phenomena surrounding her life. In 1926, she reportedly received the stigmata, the wounds of Christ, and each week she was said to relive the passion of Jesus in mystical visions. Thousands came to witness her deep devotion to the Eucharist and her unwavering faith during a time when Europe itself was descending towards war and ideological turmoil. Among those who traveled to Konnersreuth was a Croatian Jesuit priest named Petar Perica. Father Perica was already well known in his homeland. Born on June 27, 1881, on the island of Croatia near the historic city of Dubrovnik, he entered the Society of Jesus as a young man and devoted his life to missionary and pastoral work. But he would become especially beloved for his contribution to Croatian Catholic devotion. Father Perica composed some of the most famous Marian hymns in Croatian history, including Rahajska Djevo and Kraljice Hrvata, a hymn honoring the Blessed Virgin Mary as Queen of the Croatian people. His deep Marian devotion and his tireless work among youth made him a respected spiritual figure across the region. Sometime during the 1930s, Father Perica traveled to Germany and visited Therese Neumann in Konnersreuth. At the time, many priests sought her spiritual counsel, believing she possessed a profound mystical insight into the sufferings and trials facing the Church. It was during this meeting that Therese Neumann made three remarkable statements to the Jesuit priest, statements that many would later regard as prophetic. The first prophecy concerned Father Perica himself. During the conversation, Neumann reportedly told him that he would one day die a martyr. At the time, this would have seemed unlikely. Father Perica was simply a parish priest and missionary working peacefully among the faithful. Europe had not yet reached the devastating climax of the Second World War, and few could have imagined the violence that would soon engulf the region. Yet history would unfold tragically. In October of 1944, near the end of the war, communist partisan forces entered Dubrovnik as the Axis powers retreated from the region. In the political purges that followed, many civilians, intellectuals, and clergy were arrested without trial. Father Petar Perica was among those taken into custody. On October 25, 1944, he and more than 50 other prisoners were transported to the small island of Daxa. They were executed and buried in a mass grave. For decades, the site remained largely unspoken of under the communist government of Yugoslavia. Only many years later were investigations conducted and the remains of the victims recovered. For many Croatian Catholics, the tragic death of Father Perica confirmed what Therese Neumann had foretold, that the gentle Jesuit hymn writer would indeed die as a martyr during a time of persecution. The second prophecy attributed to Neumann concerned the future suffering of the Croatian people. According to the tradition preserved in Croatian Catholic accounts, she warned that the nation would pass through a period of great hardship and oppression, but would remain faithful to Christ and to the Catholic Church. History again seemed to echo this warning. After the war, Croatia became a part of the communist state of Yugoslavia. Religious institutions faced heavy restrictions. Catholic schools and organizations were suppressed, clergy were monitored, and many priests and bishops were imprisoned and harassed. One of the most famous examples was Aloysius Stepinac, the Archbishop of Zagreb, who was arrested in 1946 and sentenced in a controversial trial widely condemned by the international community. Despite this persecution, the Catholic faith remained deeply rooted among the Croatian people. Churches continued to fill with worshippers, Marian devotions remained strong, and families quietly passed the faith on to the next generation. The third and most striking theme connected with Neumann's words concerns the future role of Croatia in Europe. She suggested that the Croatian people would have a special mission because of their fidelity to the faith. Historically, Croatia has often been described as a defender of Christianity. In the 16th century, during the expansion of the Ottoman Empire into Europe, Croatian land stood on the frontier between Christian Europe and advancing Ottoman forces. Because of the sacrifices made in these conflicts, Pope Leo X referred to Croatia as the Ante Morale Christianitatis, meaning the bulwark of Christianity. This title recognized the country's role in protecting Christian Europe during a time of grave danger. Even in modern times, Croatia's Catholic identity has remained strong despite repeated trials. During the communist decades following World War II, religious belief was often discouraged or marginalized by the state, yet Catholic traditions endured in families and parishes. When Croatia eventually declared independence from Yugoslavia in 1991, the country again faced hardship during the Croatian War of Independence from 1991 to 1995. Through those difficult years, churches remained places of prayer and refuge for many people. Pilgrimages, Marian devotions, and public expressions of faith continued to shape the spiritual life of the nation. For many believers reflecting on these events, the story of Therese Neumann's meeting with Father Petar Perica carries a deeper meaning. They see in it not only a prophecy about one priest's martyrdom, but also a reminder of how faith can endure even through war, political oppression, and suffering. The Croatian people, like many others across Eastern Europe, held on to their Catholic heritage when powerful ideologies attempted to erase it. Today, as many observers note the rapid secularization of parts of Western Europe, especially in countries such as France, where church attendance has declined sharply, the story invites reflection. The spiritual foundations that once shaped Europe are weakening in some places, yet in other parts of the continent, the Catholic faith continues to remain vibrant in communities that endured decades of persecution. Perhaps this is the deeper lesson remembered in the story of Therese Neumann and Father Petar Perica. Faith can survive even the darkest periods of history, and the nations and communities that continue to hold firmly to that faith may play an important role in preserving the Christian heritage of Europe for future generations. Therese Neumann, pray for us.